Welcome back. Well, now we can look to the basic understanding of Marx. Well, he defines the exchange value, and we need to start. Maybe we should start from the economy, the philosophical views of Marx. I won't repeat it in detail, but according to Marx' same philosophy, science should be built by taking into account the overall, well, not by taking the objects or individuals or commodities, any item that science studies in isolation. Rather, it should take into account the effects that are actually influencing the characteristics or behavior properties of individuals that are studied. So, at the beginning, in order to do that, we should have at least a rough view of the grades, the macro body we are studying. And for this course, it is economy, basically. Well, you might ask, maybe economic system is also a body that is within the society and at large also within the universe, physical universe. That is right. And to some extent, maybe the effects of the physical world and biological world and the greater human society should also be included into economy. But at least in Marxian economy, the micro elements, micro definitions are made by taking this macroeconomic view into account. So the initial definitions we will make now will be macro definitions. My initial, let's say, the world view we will see will be at macro level, but in the end, we will use that macro level to make also micro definitions. Micro definition, the definition of a basic factory or production process, basically. We will especially focus on the definition of the production process in more detail in the next lecture. So for Marx, economy is part of the social system that turns the available resources to the valuable things. So, if we take the whole society, in that case, actually, whole society means that the society that is economically more or less independent. That doesn't mean that the society is able to buy with the money it has everything it needs. It means that it can produce everything it needs. Even if exchange occurs, if that exchange is just, marginal, very low level compared with the overall production that happens in a country or for a nation, in that case, that nation might be considered as independent, economically independent. Economic independence can be used in different ways, but that can be the definition. That is the definition here I make. So we are living in a world that when no country is economically independent, even the United States at least has many exports and imports basically made to the country. So they need production made in other countries, and the production in the United States is connected to the production made in the other world, in the other parts of the world. So in that case, except maybe some isolated human tribes at certain regions, when we are taking the economy, we take the economy of the whole world. Not a nation. National economies are not anymore isolated from each other anymore. 200 years ago, maybe we could take nations as isolated economic systems, but not anymore. So when you take whole economy, whole humanity, then money is not a resource. if you take whole humanity into one group, then who will the humanity pay to buy other things? In that case, resources are pretty much at the general level. Of course, the previously produced things are also resources, but if you take economic production at its very first stage, you have two resources: the resources that are provided by nature, the resources that are that the human society provides by itself. So the resource that is intrinsic part of the human society. Of course, that's also a natural resource, but that's also part of the humanity. I mean, it's not external to the humanity. Natural resources, they are given to the humanity free. Of course, within the humanity, certain people might get ownership of those natural resources, and they might sell those resources to the rest of the humanity, rest of the nations, but also rest of the people in the society of that person, if, in some cases, for some money. But if you take the humanity as a whole, basically, natural resources are given to the people free. Well, here I should also mention another aspect. For example, here when I talk free, I'm talking coal in the ground. If you extract coal from the ground, in order to extract that coal, you need to put some labor power. That coal is not getting above by itself. Well, in that case, coal is not coal above the ground, coal in your house or coal in the factory, brought to the factory is not free. Because in order to extract it from the ground, some labor power should be put, should be spent. Natural resources are free at the moment when they exist. They are given without any human power, without any human, let's say, human interaction. Do we have any completely free natural resource? I mean, which we can use readily? Maybe air. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. You might, maybe some trees in the forest where you can walk and enjoy the trees at least, and maybe they might also provide some shade to you, which you might enjoy, and they might be grown. They might have grown without human interaction. Maybe some of them exist, and for some of them, the human interaction necessary might be very small. That's also possible. And still, I mean, even if some human interaction is necessary, those natural resources are still, I mean, something nature gives us, and I mean, we need to put some labor power, but in that, with that, adding that labor power, we can use them. But since those natural resources are given to the humanity freely, they have in Marxian economics zero exchange value. So now capital. Well, in Marx, the first thing you should learn on capital is, in case of Marx, capital means something else compared with the mainstream economics. I have mentioned this before, but I should mention it again. And next week we will see it in more detail. So what is called in mainstream economics capital is called in Marxian economics means of production. So means of production, the things with which you do the production. The machines mainly. Sometimes infrastructure is also added. That's what mainstream is called. Economics is calling capital. So mainstream economics takes the machines and buildings. For example, we use the machines as capital. So capital and work in mainstream economics is working together to turn the inputs of production to the output of production. In that case, machines are not anymore inputs of this pen. Machines are factor of production, just like labor power. But according to Marx, those machines do not add value to the commodities. So when they are used, their value is transferred to the commodities. What does it mean? I mean, if I produce with a machine, big, large machine, this pan, for example, the machine exists still. I mean, the machine doesn't disappear. How can I say the value of the machine is transferred to this pan? Well, that machine can be used to produce a certain number of pans. For example, let's say that machine is used to produce 10,000 pans. In that case, if that machine is $10,000 for after production of each pan, 1/10,000 of that machine's value is transferred to this pan. So that's Marxian definition. Is it a just definition? We will see in a minute. We will discuss, how Marx justifies this definition. Labor power is, according to Marx, the only tool humans have that add value to the things. So if I have initially a commodity like a plastic, for example, which is not produced freely, but let's assume we got plastic freely. Plastic needs also be produced after a chemical process done in the factory, of course. But if we have plastic that is given freely for humans, that has a zero exchange value, if I spend 5 labor hours to transform this that plastic to this pan, in that case, I add value to that plastic. Of course, I might have used a machine, and that machine might be produced in 10,000 labor hours. In that case, one labor hour worth 1 labor hour from the value of the machine will be also transformed to this pan. But in the end, while 1 labor hour is transferred from the machine to the pan, the value of the machine itself will decrease one labor hour, because now the machine won't be able to produce anymore 10,000 pans, but it can only produce 9,999 pans. So in the end, there is no value added there. It's just value transferred. But when I produce by using my labor power, I'm actually transferring value, adding value to the input I have used. If the input itself had a value, for example, plastic is produced in 1 labor hour, again, that 1 labor hour will be transferred to this pan. So in that case, the value of the pan will be 7 labor hour. Exchange value of the pan will be 7 labor hour, because 5 labor hour is my labor hour added, and 2 labor hour is transferred from the inputs in that case. So why does the means of production don't add any value? Because from Marxian perspective, means of production is just another way. If you take the whole society, means of production is just another way of production. I can either don't produce a machine and somehow find ways to transform the plastic with my bare hands to this pan. Alternatively, I might first build the machine and then use the machine to produce this pan. So for the humanity as a whole, producing first the machine by spending some labor hour to produce that machine, and then use the machine to create a pan, is just another a production method, compared with the method when they won't produce machine but just produce the pan directly. So because of that, in the end, for me, whether I use the machine or not, the cost of this pan is at social level, at the level of the humanity itself, is the labor power spent to produce this pan. So social, in a way, exchange value is equal to the social cost of the commodity. And prices and whole economic system, although prices are not completely equal to the exchange value, whole economic system in capitalist system as well revolves around this social cost, according to Marx. we will talk more on it in the next